After reading the newest chapter of Tower of God, episode 86 of season 3, I have a lot of thoughts, but the main thought that I have is after seeing Daddy Baylord, who looks absolutely amazing, and seeing Yasracha in his old terrible getup or whatever, I have this weird thought. There are a lot of similarities between Daddy Baylord and Yasracha. I pointed out in my stream yesterday, if you haven't seen it yet, I recommend checking it out by clicking the card, that they both have these watermelon eyes, right? But then, after thinking about that and sort of voicing my opinion on the fact that it's weird that they have very similar colored eyes, right? A lot of you commented these very interesting thoughts in the comments, and it really sort of changed my opinion on the relationship between Yasracha and Yama's father, and even Yasracha and Yama, and Doom, and Paul. There's something going on here, and as you can probably tell by the title of the video, I really think that Yasracha and Yama's father could be brothers. Now, I'm not saying that it has to be a brother relationship. It could be perhaps that they're related in some other way, which we'll get into, but it would just make so much sense, because first of all, the watermelon eyes, right? Sometimes the design of the eye looks different, but then at other panels, it looks the same. Yasracha has that like spirally, watermelon-esque eye, and the weird thing about this is that Doom specifically mentioned to Yama, beware of the man, or beware of the cat guy with watermelon eyes. Yasracha is a cat dude, a feline, with watermelon eyes. The reason this is weird is because this means that Doom specifically recognized the eyes, and Doom is the one who knew his father, so I feel like Doom mentioning the eyes in particular and not, I don't know, the color of his hair or the tail or whatever, it just seems odd. It seems like that detail is important to Doom, and perhaps even to the father. Maybe the father told Doom, like, something about the eyes, I don't really know, but one way or another, they do have that in common. My only real problem with that sort of theory with the eyes being similar is that it seems like if Doom knew something, he would have said so. Like, I truly think Doom has basically spilled everything he knows about the story at this point. It'd be kind of sad if he was still hiding information from Yama after all this time, so I don't know. That's an interesting one. But another thing that really caught my attention, because it's just so weird how I've never noticed this before, but Daddy Baylord has this mark on the side of his face, the left side of his face in particular. And this mark is exactly the same as the one that Yasracha has on the left side of his face. And if you've never noticed this mark, I don't blame you, because I didn't either. But if you go back and look at the Yasracha panels, it's there for every single one. Like, how has no one ever talked about the fact that on one side of his face he has this black mark? This black mark also looks kind of similar to Doom when he transforms. So it's like, why do Yasracha and Daddy Baylord both have the watermelon eyes, and they both have this mark on the left side of their face? That cannot be a coincidence. Shout out to ForkChan for pointing that out, because that kind of blew my mind. The reason that Doom has this mark perhaps too, or at least has a mark that's similar when he transforms, which maybe isn't even, like, maybe it looks different enough that it's not the same, but still, if we're going to assume that that's the reason they look similar, it would make sense, because Doom is a purebred canine. He's the only son of Daddy Baylord, for lack of a better name, that is a purebred canine, a pure-blooded canine, right? So that's the reason also why I think he looks the most similar to his father as opposed to Yama or Paul. Like, sometimes Yama's father looks like Yama, but in other cases he looks like Doom, but like with the same similar hair as Doom, I don't really know. Now, aside from visually, the eyes or the mark, right? There's also the fact that they have a very similar power. They can both sort of turn people into canines or felines, right? That's why they're able to create a canine army. They're not creating them out of thin air, they're turning humans into canines. And Yasracha, on the other hand, is turning humans into felines, or species into felines. Like, for example, Yasracha. Yasracha was a Rashang who was turned into a feline. Now, that may be something like, okay, well, maybe Yasracha stole that power from Daddy Baylord or something. Like, okay, not really, but if you want to assume that there isn't really a correlation there, think about this. Yasracha was adopted into the Lopobia family, right? That he wasn't actually he's not a son of the Lopobia family. Sort of similar to how Daddy Baylord was adopted sort of into the family, but in his case, it was more like, okay, we're gonna use you. I feel like Yasracha was probably treated better as like the cat that sits next to the Lopobia family head or whatever, you know, while and Yama's father was sort of thrown into the cage or whatever, sort of like a mutt of the family. But that's very similar to what they do. Like Yasracha, for example. Yasracha was also sort of adopted into the family when he was given feline powers. Same for every other person who was given these powers. Like Kendrick Diel, you know, it's like, well, Yasracha was not a Lopobia, so let's stick with the Yasracha thing. But he gained the Lopobia name by becoming a feline. That's very similar to Yasracha himself, and I feel like could be similar with Daddy Baylord. Maybe I'm not making my point clear about the whole adoption thing, but I'm just basically saying there's something very similar going on between all these people who are being brought into the family and given the name, you know, it's like there's a correlation here. You're like given this animal power and becoming like an honorary member of the family almost? I don't know. There's something going on there. Now, the thing that sort of gets me, when people say, why isn't Yasracha murdering Yama or Doom, it's sort of like, okay, that's just a villain thing to do, keep them alive and break their spirit. And I think part of that could be to break Yama's spirit, break his mind. However, I think there's a reason he's breaking Yama's spirit and breaking Yama's mind. Like, he's trying to possibly protect them. If he really is their Uncle Yasracha, that sounds awful. If he really is related to them in some way, whether or not it's blood, this is the way to do it. Make Yama give up. Make him run away. Make them leave. Because when he found them as kids, he didn't murder them right then and there. He planted fear in them, right? He planted fear in them. Why did he do that? He could be trying to save them. We don't know what happened in that flashback. I'm assuming we'll get to hear what Yama heard someday, but perhaps that flashback reveals their relationship or reveals Yasracha's sort of motive. Maybe Yama doesn't hate Yasracha as much after hearing that, or maybe he hates him more, who knows? I feel like the relationship probably wasn't revealed though, because Yama was pretty calm after waking up. You know, he wasn't like, I'm gonna, it's like he was kind of calm, which makes me think he wasn't like blown away by what he heard. It was just something that was somewhat shocking, but not like devastating to Yama. So there's something going on there. That flashback, but okay, the flashback itself. Yasracha calls Daddy Baylord puppy, which sort of sounds like he's demeaning him in some way. But I think him calling him puppy could be his way of like a term of endearment, his way of calling a brother of his or someone close to him. You know how it's like, oh, little bro or something like that, or you say a name that's sort of somewhat, like people call me Bonehead, you know what I mean? That's sort of how my name became Bonehead. It was just a term of endearment, even though it was sort of like an insult, but not really. You know, I feel like maybe that could be the same thing. Puppy, hey puppy, you know? That could be his way of being like, hey buddy, or hey friend, you know? Like that's what I've called you your whole life. And because he's not calling him mutt or scum or anything, he only does that to Yama and them. And I feel like the reason he's doing that is to maybe protect them. You guys have been talking about this a lot in the comments, and I really think that has to be what's going on. But either way, that hidden conversation's gonna have to reveal something, but probably not the exact relationship, but just that they were maybe closer than what Yama thought, or something along those lines, or maybe that his father ended up siding with Yasracha, and that's when Yasracha betrayed him, or there's something going on there. The last point I'm gonna make about the relationship between Yasracha and Daddy Baylord was sort of something that I thought of because of someone named Ifman in the comments, so thank you, Ifman. What if they're not necessarily brothers by blood, but what if both of them were created by the workshop? I think this makes like way too much sense, to the point where it has to be something like this. We know that Daddy Baylord was created by the workshop. He's some kind of creation that is able to create more species like him. Like the whole point of the Baylord family is we're able to create a canine army. That's the reason why Yama was such a valuable slayer. They can create tons and tons of, canines that can do whatever you want. That's insane. It's an army that you can do with whatever you want and not feel bad about throwing them into battle or something. But what if Yasracha is similar? That's why they both have beastification, transformation, mind control, and creating people that are similar to them. The canines don't really have mind control, but maybe with the fangs, maybe that's why the fangs are coming into play. I don't know. Like, they're very, very similar, obviously. We can see all the similarities, even just the fact that they're both animal species, and they're sort of these counterparts. They have the watermelon eyes, though, and they have the mark on their face. Like, there's so much going on here. What if it's because they're brothers in a way that they were created together, and they were both adopted together by the Lopobia family head, in a similar way that the Yasracha is adopted into the family and given the Lopobia name. Yasracha could potentially have been given a higher position, while someone like Daddy Baylord maybe couldn't do maybe his power wasn't as good as Yasracha, or wasn't as refined, and maybe that's why his position was lower, and he was given the dirty work or something. There's so many potential reasons as to why Yasracha and Daddy Baylord could be related. I hate saying daddy, but like, what am I supposed, Papa Baylord? I don't know. Like, I've heard people say Papa Baylord, Yama's father. I don't want to say Yama's father 100 times. But there is one last thing. Yasracha has mentioned Yama's father like so many times. Like, so many times to the point where you're like, there's no way he just hated him. There's no way he just betrayed him and that's it. They had a relationship. Not necessarily the way you're thinking, like get your mind out of the gutter, but they had some kind of friendship or brotherhood or rivalry or something. There's something going on between those two, and I think we're gonna find that out in the upcoming weeks, especially with Yama's probably final fight with Yasracha, where he hopefully gains the third fang. But I would love to know your thoughts in the comments down below. Obviously, fast pass readers or whatever, don't spoil anything, but I'm really curious what you guys think. So comment down below and subscribe to the channel for more Tower of God content. Stay tuned for a really exciting announcement this week. I'm so stoked. You guys are, it's gonna be so much fun. It's a new something I've been preparing for a few months now with some other people, so look forward to that. And also, our Tower of God Nuzlocke continues on Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Our current team is like Edwan, Misang, Rachel somehow is still alive, and Kalavan. It's gonna be a lot of fun, so join us for that as well. All right, guys, I'll see you in my next Tower of God discussion/theory video. Take care.